1, 2, 3. Welcome to She Rocked It. This is the place where ladies are talking about the ways we're blazing our trails and the things that put the wind in our sails. Hey, rock stars. Welcome to the She Rocked It podcast. I'm your host, Karen Gross. And if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast, or if you're on YouTube, drop us a comment. We love hearing from you. And if you want to be on the inside of everything that we're doing here at She Rocked It, I would love to have you as a member of our Rockstar Network, where you can get monthly mentorship. You can be part of our studio audiences, know about our networking events, be the first to know about everything cool we have going on here at She Rocked It. So you can learn more about that on our website. Without further ado, I want to dive into today's conversation. I have been waiting for this conversation for it feels like a year. I don't know. This woman, I am so excited to hear more about her career. She is rocking it as a multidisciplinary creative in the world of motorsports and motorcycles. I mean, badass. So I'm here with Kim Maroon. I'm not going to take too much time telling you about Kim because I want Kim to tell us about herself, but I just know we're going to get so much cool insight into her badass career. Kim Maroon, welcome to the She Rocked It podcast. Finally.
Wow, that intro, Karen, that was awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a self-taught photographer. I'm based out of Boston, photographer director, and I specialize in automotive, motorsports, and lifestyle and portraiture. I'm actually originally from New Jersey, where I started off doing concert photography. So I was a co-house photographer at Starland Ballroom. And I was following the music community, like working in music publicity. This was like early 2000s, mid 2000s. And I was working for metal and hardcore bands at the time. And then I moved into Apple retail. So I've had this kind of wild ride of different roles and careers. But what brought me to Boston in 2011 was grad school. So I applied for Mass Art. They have this program with interactive design. It's basically just like a merging of art and design and technology. It's called the Dynamic Media Institute. So it's really like structured, but also pretty loose in what you could choose to study. Like you choose your interest and your topic. I chose photography and tech. And then at the end, you produce this like thesis document. So you actually have to write a book, which was amazing at the end of this 3 years. But I was working full time while I was doing this program.
Wow.
And just like moved, everything was all at once. It seems like I do everything in that style. Like, let's move, let's start grad school, new job, like different Apple store. And then also photography followed me to Boston. But when I left school, I started a completely new career in experience design, which is what I had intended. I was like, I want to start a different, like, I want to be in this creative space, but I really don't know how I fit in. So that kind of brought me to experience design. So that gives me my sort of hybrid or multi-hyphenate, as you described it, role. So I was freelancing a lot in Boston when I was in school, but really not a lot because I was completely exhausted between work and school. But in 2016, that's when I officially registered myself as a business and kind of when all of the automotive work started, like completely new field, new community. I just kind of was curious about it and kept following it. So that's where it started in 2016.
All right. Tell us a little more about that, because I know that you are, one of the things you're known for is your amazing photography and your work in the motorsports, automotive, lifestyle, motorcycles, that whole scene. So how did that become like a muse for you and part of your trajectory, that whole arena?
Well, I guess like a lot of things were happening at the same time. So like I quit a job in 2016 that was like a design job that was pretty toxic and I was miserable. But then I was like, wow, I have this blank slate. What am I going to do? And there was this event happening in New Jersey, the Race of Gentlemen. It happens every year. And I was like, wow, now I have a chance to do it. I have the time. And my idea was to kind of take pictures from a different perspective or do it a different way. Because I had seen it done by many photographers. It looks so awesome.
The Race of Gentlemen, it's called.
The Race of Gentlemen in Wildwood, New Jersey. So it's this beach race of like like ratty motorcycles, hot rods, just vintage bikes and cars. And everybody just comes down and it's this huge blast on the beach. So what I did was I had this idea of like, well, I want to shoot with GoPros. Can I ask GoPro to borrow cameras? And my friend David was like, why not? Like, what's wrong with that? I was like, I don't think they would just lend me these expensive cameras. And so I went through LinkedIn and I found somebody, and he was in motorsports. So he sent me a box of cameras. He was like, I'm all about this. I'm going to beat you. And it was like, how did this come, how did this even come to be? I don't even know. And it just kind of exploded from there. And I was
just real quick. I have to just say that is a total She Rocked It moment of raising your voice. Doesn't hurt to ask the question. Just ask the damn question. And lo and behold, you got your GoPros, right? Like that's so cool. But it took that that courageous moment of saying, I'm going to like find this person on LinkedIn. And then it worked out. Like, so kudos to you for pursuing that and raising your voice. I love that.
I had no idea what was going to happen. I was like, well, what could go wrong? I'm just asking if I can. And if not, then I use my own. I figure out a different way to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was amazing to just ask. And then this person jumped on board. He flew out and showed me how to mount the cameras to the bikes and the cars.
Wow.
I actually used like footage from friends in Boston from their motorcycles. Like I was mounting cameras here to try to say like, hey, this is what I tested out. Like, do you know how to do this? And then that's kind of what gave me the oomph in that email. Be like, if I didn't have anything, I would be like, what do I do? But he came out, showed me how to mount all the cameras. We were on the beach. I was in this marshmallow mechanic suit, like just managing cameras. Like they make you dress like period correct. So they have you like wear the jumpsuits and look like you kind of fit in with this time period.
I just have to ask you, like, when you hear a title like The Race of Gentlemen, and as a woman, like being like, I'm going to just go into this kind of quote unquote masculine space historically, right? Like, what was it that like drew you to that and also gave you the courage to, as a woman, decide I want to bring my own perspective to this event?
I think it's more about just like, I'm just very social butterfly, like very outgoing. And I'll just walk up to anybody and start a conversation. So the fact that it was like these dudes on the beach, I was like, I don't know if they're going to be, like curmudgeon, like grouchy men. Like, I don't know, but like, I just kind of brought my own like bubbly personality to it. And that's what gave me that courage. And I noticed that like, once you show that you're interested and you're curious about something, everyone welcomes you into their space. It was like, and that kind of gave me the courage to keep going, because I was like, if people kind of shut me out, then I wouldn't have kept going.
And you yourself ride motorcycles, is that right?
Yes. So I actually got into riding motorcycles because I was photographing motorcycles. So I started this all in 2016. I decided like, well, what if I got my license? Then I could be closer to all this action and get to ride with all these people. And I only saw it from that perspective. I was like, oh, I'm just going to get a bike and then I'll just join them. And it didn't occur to me that like, this is really dangerous. Like, I don't know how to ride anything manual. I've never driven a stick shift in a car. And then I went on this weekend course in Boston, and they teach you how to ride from scratch. And then you get your license at the end. You take the test. I had it. And then the next year I got a bike in 2018. And it just completely like blew the doors off of everything. I was like, oh, this is what this is really like. And I had no idea until I started riding myself.
Wow. How did it blow the doors off of things? Was it like a window into a whole new universe, sort of? I mean, I want to know, what is it like being a woman who rides a motorcycle? What is that?
It makes you feel like a superhero, if that makes any sense. Like you have this machine and like going fast, the wind in your face. It gave me so much power to just feel like I could do anything once I kind of overcame this thing. And especially if you talk to women that ride out to Babes Ride Out, which is this motorcycle camp out on the Catskills, when you come back, you're like, you feel on top of the world from doing that, because at the end of the day, like at the end of that weekend, it's like a 700 or 800 mile round trip ride. And
Wow.
you do it in like 4 days or 3 days. And it's amazing. It's just an amazing feeling. And then I think when I done rides on my own, that far, it's just a huge charge for me. So like, I didn't know that I would personally feel, like, I don't know, personally courageous, not so much like a career courageous from this thing. Yeah.
That is so interesting. Tell me a little bit about I want to talk about your career because you've obviously followed your passions. You have a few different prongs of your career. What gave you the courage to really do this amazing creative life? Did you, when you were younger, were you like, I'm going to be an artist, a creative, and kind of make my way? Or was it something you had to kind of get that confidence? But because it also sounded like, earlier on you were shooting bands and doing photography. So you always kind of done this. So, but like, was that always, even since you were young, like, I'm just going to, follow the
I'm
artistic
just gonna
path?
go.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, I didn't even study art when I was, in college. I studied science. And I think I used photography and creative as a way to escape. So like, I was like, this is really stressful. And it started to become like, sort of a depressing space to be in, or just like the doldrum of, college work. So I was like, I want to learn how to use a camera. I want to do something with my hands and be creative. Um, and then the more I took pictures and saw the feedback from that, the sort of, that gave me the courage to keep going. And I was like, oh, I just want to get better at this. And the more I practice it, that's going to give me that confidence, to keep going for it. And then those moments of like joy and connecting with people, I feel like that was the other piece to it. It's that I just love being around people. I love hearing stories. And the camera was this tool to do that. It was like
Mhm.
a gateway to
Yeah.
all of these things. And it's funny, I tell people, and I'm like, I used to be slightly introverted until I started taking pictures. And I was like, okay, now I have to actually, talk to people and, spark up a conversation. But then it became effortless. And then the camera was just a way to be like that document of experience of, here I am in this space. And I bring this with me, and I'm making these connections with people.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. And like starting, kind of in the music scene and then going into kind of the motorsports scene. So even being in the music scene, I imagine you had to kind of thrust yourself into that mix of like being at the
Yes.
shows. Like you said, if you were like in Jersey or New York, like, was that something that kind of got your adrenaline going at that time?
Yeah, it was that like organized chaos. Like everything was like turbulent and chaotic. I gravitated towards like hardcore and punk shows, basement shows where there's like hurling bodies and like people crowd surfing. So, and I love that. Like the places now where everything has a press pit, I'm kind of like, oh, I almost want to get, like, I don't want to say I want to get hit in the head with a boot, but like, I just want it to be a little bit more like rough than it is now. It's definitely more controlled now. But yeah,
A
it
little
was that,
sterilized.
yeah, that sense of like chaotic turbulence, like you had a low like drop ceiling, and people would knock ceiling tiles out, or like stuff like that. Or just I would go to places like Asbury Lanes for punk night. And then everybody would be there every week. So it was this idea of the community aspect. And a lot of people outside of motorcycles talk about subculture, the word subculture. And they're like, oh yeah, that exists in music too. And I think that's what bridged that gap between shooting concerts and bands and the music scene to moving to motorcycles. And I was like, wow, they kind of make the same sound. Like I got that same jolt that I get from, a speaker at a show, like standing right next to it, that I do
Right.
with a motorcycle. The vibration or something is very similar between the two.
Absolutely. I never thought of that, but you're so right. You feel it. Your whole body shakes with
Your
both,
whole
right?
body, yeah.
Yeah. That's right. If a speaker, if it's like a motorcycle engine. Oh my gosh, I love that. On the flip side of all that, you've also done agency work. I know you've worked with some major, corporate clients. Tell us a little bit about some of the big brands you've worked with, and like how does that align with the opposite of like this is chaos, and the more, I would imagine, slightly buttoned up
Yeah.
kind of world.
Well, I feel like the commercial clients that I've gotten the chance to work with, like Infiniti Motors, when they approached me for that work, the first thing out of the creative director's mouth was like, "You've seen a lot of chaotic things," and I was like, "And you're good with dealing with chaos." So that I was like, "Okay, is this shoot going to be like this?" And like, how do I produce something that is at the expectation of the client, but it doesn't show that chaos? So I mean, they having that reputation of like going into an environment where there's a lot of unknowns and ambiguity, with these bigger clients is, I feel like, is starting to become the norm for me.
Interesting, like
Even,
a calling card for you.
yeah, but then I'm like, I don't really want to have like the complete chaos type of shoot. Like, I would like it to be controlled. And that's where I think like I'm working on a test shoot now, with a production group where it's going to be like, all you have to focus on is taking photos. You don't have to manage, a million other things like you were used to doing before. Because all of this work that you see on my site, I'm just like this one man band lone wolf, doing that work. And I'm trying to move towards more like supported work with production and a producer and an art director. And that, yeah, that would, not to lose what my calling card is, but to kind of take a step back and say, okay, now I get to focus on more of the creative aspect of this and not so much of the like, I have to plan a motorcycle trip and then I have to find places to take photos. And that, like, you're doing a million things when you're trying to absorb some of those responsibilities yourself. And then sometimes the work either suffers or gets watered down because you're pulled in all those directions.
Wearing a lot of hats,
Yeah. And then I would
including your
say
motorcycle helmet.
and then I would say for the other part, like, I've worked with agencies as a designer. Typically my day-to-day as a designer is within agencies or for those commercial corporate clients. And I'm working on digital experiences, not producing photos, but at the same time, you're problem solving from a different lens. So it's more about a website, an experience, maybe it's a mobile app. You're bridging that gap between a physical and a digital experience. And those clients have needs based on what type of business they're in and what customers they have, who's coming to their site and what they need to do. So for people who don't understand what user experience design, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
I love that. I know our producer Tori is really passionate about what they call it, UX, right? Is that what the shorthand is?
Yes,
Yes.
UX design is the
I'm trying to
shorthand
be
for it.
hip, like I know the terminology, Kim.
They have lots of words. It's like product design, UX design, interactive design is the other. Yeah.
Whole, yeah, vocabulary. So you're kind of dancing in these different worlds, which is so cool. Tell us a little bit about your average day or week. Like, what's your life like, Kim? I'm curious.
Oh man, I feel like, well, I work from home. Um, my day to day is typically like with design work. Design work is more structured, so that's like typically a 9 to 5 or like regular working hours, or whatever my team or project is on. And then photo gets kind of sprinkled in as work comes up. So I'm doing a lot of things now between marketing and pitching work and trying to reach out to clients. So there's a lot of email and admin stuff that
Yeah.
is kind of, it's not as exciting as like going out and writing, but it still has to get done. Yeah, so looking for work is typically the case. And then to compare the two of them, I would say design work is more of like that cross country run. Like, if you're thinking about sports, it's like the cross country race or the marathon. It's very long. It takes a long time to build a website and lots of people. With photo, it's more of a sprint where you have, okay, I have 2 days and I have to do this kind of shoot and get these images, and then maybe like a couple of weeks of editing and then delivering them to a client, based on a timeline or project.
Absolutely. Amazing. I love that you're finding a way to seemingly kind of Keep the balls in the air, balance. Yeah.
Not to say that like I love one over the other. It's just that each design offers something and photography offers something. And they start to feed each other in the way that like I learn skills from one and I bring them to the other. I feel like having those conversations with people in photo and being like outgoing has helped me talk to design clients in meetings.
I love that.
And vice versa. It's like,
have you ever, I'm curious, just to go back to like the motorsports and automotive and like motorcycle land. I'm just curious, like, how does your family or your parents, like, how do they feel about what you do and being a motorcycle rider as a woman? Any family like raised eyebrows or anything?
I didn't tell my mom that I got my license, and I waited like a month to tell her that I got the bike. I was like, hey, you have a new grandchild. And I took a picture and I sent it to her. And
that's what a mother wants to hear.
I know. She was like, where are you going to put that? She's like, because I don't have a garage. It stays on the street. But yeah, her first thing was like, where are you keeping that? And
such a mom question.
I know. I was like, what? I'm like, this is what you're wondering about? And then she came to visit this summer. She came up from Jersey to visit, and I had her sit on it, and she was very specific. She's like, don't turn it on. I'll just sit, just sit on it when it's just quiet. So I feel like she's okay with it, but she's not. She's always like, be careful. She just says like, watch out when you're out by yourself. The normal mom stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Kim, this has been awesome. I feel the adrenaline just talking to you.
Wow.
I'm like, gosh, I want to come to these events. This sounds amazing. I always love to finish these conversations by asking our guests their one tip to rock it. I just love your career. I love how you're building this incredible ecosystem of creativity for yourself. You're badass on a bike. I love the whole thing. Give us your one tip to rock it.
I feel like I have 3.
We'll take them. We'll take them.
So be yourself, be nice, and show up are the 3.
I love that. That's a perfect series of 3. Let's say that again.
Like, be yourself, be nice, and just show up.
Yes. I feel like because you did that, you found this incredible community for yourself. And like you said, it blew the doors open.
Yeah. It's been a wild ride for sure.
Thanks for tuning into the She Rocked It podcast. I'm your host, Karen Gross. This episode has been produced by Tori Marchioni with audio engineering by Tung Chen. The She Rocked It theme song is by Karen Gross and Tim Motzer. Please join us over on Instagram and check out our website at sherockedit.com to join our Rockstar network and check out all the cool things we have going on. Hope to see you soon.